Dark Irregular's first limit break unit was originally Dark Lord of Abyss. Now, for some reason, they have decided to cut his limit break for a much harder cost. Now, his new skill is Counterblast 2 and Persona Blast. I hate Persona Blast. To then Soul Charge 2. He then gets Amon's ability of that he gets plus 1k for each card in your soul. And if you have 6 or more cards in your soul, he now gets a crit. They did some weird things to my boy. They changed his cost, gave him like a little bit of a buff that he gets now a crit. But this skill, besides the awkward cost, is basically reverse Amon's ability. So I wonder what his skill is going to be when he's brought into the game, because I doubt they'll just use this. Maybe they will, but they'll cut the Persona Blast and add the cross red. I don't know. Why is this CV2 on top of the Persona? God. So I'm going to try to find the potential, if there is any, with Lord of A, is what I will be referring to him as. Basically, the goal of the deck is just to get to the 6th soul, and then to possibly have ways of drawing into Dark Lord of A. Now, originally when I was designing the deck, I was adding in all of these grade 2s that let you draw cards. One card I was kind of looking at was Red Magma, which says if you have 6 cards in your soul, then you get to draw a card on attack. He didn't really work with the deck because you had to be at 6 soul already to even use his ability, and at that point, if you don't have a second Dark Lord in your hand, you were probably not getting to 6 soul, so that wasn't working out. I tried the 7k if you have a full board, draw a card. That card just never worked because I just never had enough resources to get a full board. And Storyteller just couldn't work because of the CB2, and we need the CB to get Dark Lord to work, so I just couldn't really find a place for him either. I decided to build the deck in a way of if you have 2 Lord of A's in your hand, then you can have early game pressure and then change your ride target, or you can use him as a late game finisher, so you can hold on to one of your Lord of A's, and then once you draw into your second one, then you can ride him and use his ability. Just like in the Reggie build, Amon is our backup ride target. We will be using Amon when we don't have 2 Lord of A's, and then we will use Amon after we use Lord of A. When I was building the deck, I was looking at how Reggie needed to get to 15, so we would try to turbo to 15 as soon as possible. Lord of A only needs to get to 6 to be able to turn on. So if you ride correctly, you will have 2 cards no matter what in your soul. So that means we need another 4. He soul charges to himself. So that means we only need to soul charge 2 cards in a game to turn him on. Originally, I was looking at the starters to do that. I was either looking at Vermilion or Greedy Hand, which both soul charge themselves, and a second card, which will then immediately get us to 6. I was originally trying out Greedy Hand to then synergize with our Demon Bike. I then tried out Vermilion because the CB1 was kind of hurting the deck. I decided to go with Devil in Shadow because him being able to get us a second Lord of A is really powerful actually for the deck. He's also useful in case we don't hit a Lord of A off his search and we just need another ride target such as Amon. Now that he is now in the soul, we now just need to soul charge 1 more card. To do that, we will either be using Alluring Succubus, which is just on play soul charge 1, or in my opinion, the MVP of the deck is Knowledge Drunkard. He has the ability that when he hits the Vanguard, you get to put a card from your hand into the soul and you get to draw a card. So this gets us to our 6th soul, and it lets us draw cards, both of which Lord of A needs. I decided the deck needed a little more pressure than just what Lord of A could offer, so having a backup strategy with the Witching Hour engine kind of helped. You can get him into your soul from hand with Drunkard, and you can get him into the soul on the field with Amon. Same with Chariot, he's just an amazing unit, gets more heals, gets more Witching Hour units that you can get into your soul, Not much reason to talk about him. And then I have the one NLK just as a pseudo finisher because this deck will use all of the CB. So the nice thing about NLK is that you can have all that CB face down and he can still activate his ability at 5 damage. And he doesn't care about how many cards you have in your soul. So us only getting to 6 is not going to hinder him. Other cards that want us to be at 6 damage are our grade 2 Indifferent Succubus. If you are at 6 soul, she is a 12k attacker and a 12k defender. I really liked her here because she doesn't use any of our resources like our CB, but she allows us to be aggressive and defensive. Yes, she is an 8k vanilla on our second ride, but usually on our third turn and forward, we will be at 6 soul, so she will be on. Our other card that cares about being at 6 soul is our 1 copy of Amon. I was originally having him at 4 because having him as a 9k attacker to take out interceptors was very useful. I ended up just cutting him down to 1 to make more room for the Alluring Succubus to help us get us to our 6 soul. I have the 2 10k vanillas here just as some defensive bodies, just to kind of take punches in the face while we're waiting for our second Lord of A. And then I'm kind of being aggressive here with my 3 copies of Gwyn the Ripper. The idea here is that we need to be dealing 2 damage a turn. This can either be done with Lord of A with his crit swing, or it can be done with Gwyn the Ripper and taking out an interceptor. It would be nice if we could use a Gwyn the Ripper and a Lord of A on the same turn, dealing 3 damage, but that uses up so much CB, it is not likely to happen. Now, like I said, getting the 6 soul is all that matters. We don't care about going to 7 or beyond because the deck doesn't really need it. Amon is already going to be at 17k attacking if you're at 6, which does hit over magic numbers over MLB. Just make sure you're not a monkey brain boy like me, because you want to make sure you are at least 4 soul when you go to activate Lord of A's ability. Because I originally thought his ability was saying something like Amon, where he will then for the rest of the turn get plus 1k for each card in your soul, and once you hit 6, his crit will activate. His ability actually reads that at the time of activating, he checks how much is in your soul and then applies the effect. So if you are at 3 cards in soul, he will then soul charge 2, going to 5, then turning him into a 16k attacker. If you soul charge later in the turn, he does not continue to rise. It is at the time of activating. I've learned this the hard way. Don't be a monkey brain. Now, typically how games will go is we will have a lot of games where we are just on Amon the entire time. How I look at Lord of A is that in this build, he is not a boss monster. He is more of a finisher, similar to NLK. Now, with that said, I think Lord of A is a grade 1. Like a grade 1 plus, like almost a grade 2. It's just the CB2 hurts so bad. So we lost our limit break for a Persona Blast. This also happened with Farah for Pale Moon. To even her out though, they got rid of her CB1. But for some reason, Lord of A kept his CB2. In the original printing, no one played Lord of A because he basically just had the same ability as Amon but had an 11k butt. Now that both Amon and Lord of A have 11k butts, the only reason to play Lord of A is for the crit pressure. But the crit pressure is so hard to get to because of the CB that makes the deck building so restrictive. I understand what they were going for, that like this just off a Persona Blast feels a little strong. I think if like they kept the Persona Blast, kept the Soul Charge 2, but got rid of like the power gain, but still had like that threshold of if he's at 6 soul, gain a crit. I think that would be absolutely fair and at least like playable in more builds than just this one. Like let's look at PBO. Like I get PBO as a triple rare, Lord of A is double rare. I'm just trying to compare like power levels, okay? So PBO, on top of having a cross ride, has a Persona Blast. His Persona Blast is just a Persona Blast, and he gets 10k and a crit. Lord of A has a Persona Blast, CB2, soul charges, which is nice, but then you have a threshold to hit to even get any amount of power gain and to even turn on his crit. You see what I mean? Like, it's just, they put so many barriers in front of him just to get him to work that it's almost not worth it. Now, I still think if you have a playset of Lord of A, I think you should give the deck a try. I think it definitely has a place. I don't think he synergizes with Reggie because they're both kind of acting as a second ride rather than a main ride. Amon is so flexible that he can go into any deck, while just Lord of A is so restrictive that he just doesn't work most of the time. If you love Lord of A, if you hate Lord of A, let me know in the comments. If you have any other units that you'd like to hear me talk about, also leave a comment. I'm having a lot of fun deck building and playing around with all these new builds that the new set has given us. I have seen a lot of people talking about how the game is getting a little stagnant for them, and I get that. I'm not going to try to deny that. But I think you can find ways of making the game fun if you put certain stipulations on yourself. I recently saw that True Champion Steven even did a common cup, where basically your entire deck just had to be commons. And I thought that was like super interesting. And, he can build upon that. You can have rare cups, or everyone plays one clan. Like, you can make the game your own amount of fun, especially with the way that the community is growing. Yeah, I never know how to end these. That's all I got.